For Carwyn, rugby was a form of art.
Well, we play to win, but secondly, the manner of winning matters a great deal.
He was an aesthetic man, a sensitive man, a liberal-minded man. And when you have those qualities, as well as the knowledge and intelligence about the game, it seems so stupid to waste it.
As a sportsman, scholar and politician, Carwyn lived his life in the public gaze.
Well, he could see very far, and he wanted to go far. And he did go far.
Many of you may not know of Carwyn James. Carwyn James was the Lions coach for the 1971 Lions tour and is also kind of known as the father of Lions rugby. His philosophy was to have a very strong pack, to be able to dominate in the forwards like New Zealand or South Africa of the time, but then to unleash the Welsh creativity behind the backs like JPR Williams, Barry John, Gareth Edwards, so on and so forth. His philosophy was espoused by the 1997 Lions, where the Lions were creative under Ian McGeechan and Jim Telfer, where they would run the ball, but they would also make sure that the pragmatism to dominate in the pack was there. This philosophy has been seen in multiple Lions tours. The 2001 Lions tour, Graham Henry was renowned and actually said, "We are going for the Carwyn James style of play against the Wallabies." And so this bodes the question, will Gregor Townsend, a veteran of the 1997 tour, espouse the same philosophy? Well, this is the question. We'd like to see it, but really? No. As much as I wish it weren't so, I don't believe that the Lions will win this way. For me, the relationship between Warren Gatland and Gregor Townsend is a little bit like the Qui-Gon Jinn Obi-Wan Kenobi dynamic in Star Wars. You have your young, really talented Scottish apprentice and above the wise old head in Qui-Gon Jinn, aka Warren Gatland. You've got all this flair and creativity and passion in Obi-Wan, but Qui-Gon Jinn just has to bring him back down a little bit. When the time is right, the Lions, like the Boks, are going to want to play rugby. They're going to want to move the ball wide, they're going to want to play fast. However, the Boks are going to slow the ball. They are going to fuck up ruck speed, and they are going to ruin the Lions' day. Gatland knows this, but also knows we'll need some pretty jazzy attack to get past the Bok defence, which is why we're going to see, in my opinion, a mixing of the philosophies. Now, if you haven't seen it already, I really recommend going back and watching the Wibble Rugby, the Springboks defence video, because otherwise a lot of these terms, they're really not going to make much sense. The dynamics, the mechanisms of the Bok defence, they're all in this video, and if you don't know what they are, you are going to be a little bit confused. So I recommend, if you haven't seen it, go back now and watch that and then give it a little bit of time, because obviously it's quite a hit. If you have already seen it though, sit back, grab a cup of tea, and hopefully enjoy it. Since the Lions have met up, I've been debating how they're going to attack the Boks, what I think they're going to bring to the table in terms of strategies to really try and stretch the best defence in the world. What I came to the conclusion of is that we're going to have two main sets. Now this is the same as anything, but the set-piece attack, which is the priority, and then the multi-phase attack, which is going to be a very strong secondary. The Lions coaching staff have picked a squad that can attack, can be very defensively astute, but most importantly can be lethal off set-piece. The back row's explosiveness and speed will be king, which brings us to the set-piece attack. Now, Gatland and Townsend are going to be combining their considerable rugby IQ throughout this tour to combat the world's best defence. Townsend has quite a few trick moves up his sleeve, and we know Gatland can get past the South African defence. Wales beat the Boks 4 times prior to the Boks semi-final win in 2019. This brings us to the first of the set-piece family of moves I believe we'll see, which are the Exeter stacks. The Exeter Chiefs are one of the best teams in England, known for their innovative attacking moves. Under the tutelage of Ali Heffer, the Chiefs run some lovely moves, like this one, with a stack of 3 backs and a hard, short decoy runner. It allows the penetrator to get through the line whilst also compressing the defence for second phase work. Now this move uses a variation in line and the chance of footwork to get through, however it wouldn't have worked against Jacques Nienaber's Boks. Remember, the Springbok adjusting defenders jam in together, so the 14, who actually stood out in the Sale Sharks example, wouldn't have done that. He would have jammed straight in on the 13 channel and taken the man out. Noel's short option of Slade here would have been covered by Yankee, but we can see it in the real example. Against South Africa, England run the Exeter stack. Now, as we can see here, Spoot Nkosi jams in on Noel, taking him out and not allowing the short runner to get through. In their last game against the Springboks in 2018, Scotland used this attack move repeatedly. It was used off scrum, it was used off line-out, and it was snuffed out repeatedly. But it wasn't used to its full potential by either Scotland or England. And I'm not just talking about the DA variations that you see here, which again are snuffed out pretty easily. There is something in this move, as it's perfect for compressing the defence and exploiting a weakness of the last edge. We can even see New Zealand stacking up in this formation, because it is a very effective move if used correctly. The secret behind it is that the short runner or the third man in the stack can compress the defence on this phase, on first phase. We can actually see here, Nkosi has to come in to jam in on Noel. Now, because Nkosi is a very nimble and a very fast back, he's able to do this, and he shuts the opportunity, he shuts the door. However, this can be exploited with the M1. This is something that Warren Gatland is very, very familiar with. He designed plays around this principle on the third phase to exploit the adjusting defender and their want to shut down the second receiver. As we can see here, the pass goes from Anscombe and it misses out Foxy. It goes straight to the third receiver. Because Colby is part of the backfield defence, he's too deep to shut down Liam Williams, meaning Williams has the time and space to get the pass off to Josh Adams, who makes ground on the wing. This is a common tactic by Wales, and it's something that the Lions must do. They must compromise the decision-making of the adjusting defender. If we look at the England example, Taylor passes back to Farrell. Now, if the lines are different, Noel can put Nkosi in no man's land. If Nkosi still jams in on him, the M1 to Daly puts Daly around Nkosi and with enough time and space to pass before the fullback in the backfield can shut him down. And that is exactly why the extra move can be so effective. If you give the adjusting defender someone to jam in on, they will jam in on him before they hold their depth, meaning the M1 is really, really, really on in this move. And it's something I think we will see. Now, we have to explain 11 and 21 patterns. So 11 and 21 patterns are essentially one pass one way, switch, one pass the other, and then two passes one way, switch, one pass the other way. The defence of 11/21 patterns comes down in particular to Handré Pollard, Damien de Allende, the defensive captains in Dwayne Vermeulen, and of course, an absolute GOAT.
Ooh. サラサラ、ツルツル。強烈にセクシーなパフィースタイルの髪型を手に入れませんか?
The purpose of the 11-21 pattern against South Africa is to isolate the tight 5 with backs running at them for mismatches, and to also isolate the 9 as the sole back defender off set piece. Now, on certain occasions, this was very effective. We see England run a 21 pattern here to actually break into the Springbok half. Against Scotland, we see them run an 11 pattern that isolates the tight 5 and nearly, just nearly, makes quite a significant break. However, at this point in 2018, South Africa was still coming to grips with their new defensive pattern under Nienaber, and it's somewhat improved. As we can show you, 2019, the results are quite a little bit different. In a 21 pattern, when they actually run the switch, you can see that it's just, there's no way through. Backs are coming into the line, they're reloading, they're shutting down any gaps that may appear there. Against the All Blacks, the world's best attacking team, they try an 11 pattern and it does not work. The Springboks' defence of the 11 and 21 pattern off set piece has improved exponentially since 2018. This is the Wales 21 example. Now, this is probably one of the best moves that you would have seen to target the seam. Now, they still snuff it out really, really easily. There's no way of getting through it. Now, if the Lions do want to break it down, break the Springbok defence using the 11-21 patterns, they need to consider the 8 and the 3 decision-making, the 10-12 reload, and the jam of Faf de Klerk. But first up, we have to really talk about the decision-making of Dwayne Vermeulen. Dwayne Vermeulen, as one of the defensive captains, has a very important role in defence off set piece, in particular 11 and 21 patterns within the first 3 phases. In the World Cup final, we can see Vermeulen highlighted in green, reading the 11 play perfectly. We actually see him point the play and realign short side. This gives Faf de Klerk the confidence that his inside is covered and he can jam to shut down the passing lane, shutting down the play. De Klerk gets a lot of plaudits for reading this play. However, Faf can't make this read if Vermeulen on his inside doesn't call it and support the inside step or seam attack. His inside presence gives Faf the confidence to make this read. We didn't just see this against England, but Japan as well. Japan run an 11 pattern and Vermeulen, again highlighted in green, reads it perfectly. He calls the switch and the defence align accordingly. This means the defence is set early. They pressure the 10 who makes a forward pass which ends the play. Vermeulen is key to this decision making, but Frans Malherbe, as the backup, is also pretty important as well. Malherbe, or the tight head prop, fills the opposite guard to Vermeulen and takes over his defensive role if Vermeulen is unable to fulfill it. You only have to look at first phase line-out defence to see this dynamic. Here we see Dwayne Vermeulen and Frans Malherbe load in at guard, with Malherbe able to command the short side defence to make sure it snuffs out the short side option. This is if Vermeulen as the primary defensive captain can't do this. On second phase, Vermeulen here gets taken out by the off-9 carry, which means Koch as the tight head guard takes over the defence. We see him highlighted here, and he sees the strike move transpiring. He takes over the short side defence, pointing to the rapidly changing players we can see here and warning the defence that the play is coming. He's made his defence aware of Biggar and Halfpenny, and therefore the 21 pattern doesn't work because the defence has gone into catch-up and it snuffs out the play. It buys them a few seconds, but that's all that they need. However, Nienaber's system yet again throws out another gem. After they've left this position, they actually corner flag behind the line to make sure if the catch-up doesn't snuff them out, and also if the jam doesn't get the strike runner, well, guess what? They will. That is the beauty of this system. It has so many backups upon backups. Here, Vermeulen's corner flagging to make sure if the break happens is caught, and here Vincent Koch's behind the line. This is only one of the things that Gregor Townsend has to consider if he's going to get the 11 and 21 patterns to work, to remove the decision-making of these two bodyguards. The decision-making of the bodyguards and defence is a huge problem. Say you want to run a Joe Schmidt godlike move. Any Cipher play, which is this basically, is snuffed out as the bodyguard always sees it coming. If one doesn't, the other will. And it's simply a way of making sure you have a backup to a backup to a backup to a backup. This is why it's so difficult to break down Nienaber's system, as it has so many fail-safes that explain why it is like 97-98% effective, and it's really going to be a challenge for Gregor Townsend to beat. Now, we've talked about the bodyguard decision-making, but next up we need to take a look at the 10-12 channel and their reload dynamics, particularly off first phase, second and third phase, depending if they're hit. If the 10-12 in Pollard and Diolende are hit off first phase, depending on the decision-making of the defensive captains, they will reload round to the short side to form the new free edge. Now, as you can imagine, especially off line out, where the 9 is the sole back defender, we don't want them to reload. We want to be targeting type 5 mismatches, and therefore we don't want them reloading around here, because even though the break is made, it just plugs the holes with backs, and it means it's going to be a lot harder to break down this side of the field. The Welsh team under Gatland in 2018 figured out one way to stop the 10-12 reload, and this was to not hit them. Essentially, as we go through this sequence, we can see that the forwards are consistently targeting the opposition Bok forwards. They're not targeting the 10 or 12. Because they haven't been hit, they haven't reloaded, which means you have 4 backs on this side and the scrum half isolated on the far side. You can even see Alan Wynne-Jones committing and making sure Damien Diolende doesn't escape here. He pins him into the ruck to make sure he can't reload. These are two ways that Gregor Townsend can address the reload of backs, and the Lions will need to manipulate this to run their 11, 21 or even their 31 patterns to beat Nienaber's system. Next up, however, we're going to be looking at Faf de Klerk, the absolute GOAT of scrum halves in defensive mode, and on top of that, key to the way that South Africa defend. Faf de Klerk has absolutely sensational hair, looks like it could be in a Herbal Essences ad. He's a great aggressive tackler, and on top of that, his passes are bullet. They are absolutely perfectly weighted, right in front of the man, accurate, perfect distribution. However, defensively, it's his goddamn God-given ability to read the defensive play that is so amazing. I mean, we can see him jamming on, and I know it's the inside defence that kind of give him that confidence to jam, but it's just the way that he does it. It's irresistible. It is literally a trap. If you move the ball wide, Faf de Klerk will be there. He will jam in on you, and he will get in your eye line and not allow you to get the ball wide. It's like Wolverine looking around, and there he is. Oh, wait. You turn around, you're looking, and there he is in your damn eye line, leaving behind his signs of his presence. I mean, it is great play, but the M1 to get around his jam is on under certain circumstances. If we have a look here, the circumstances are almost perfect. Remember, the adjusting defender has to be given something to jam in on, and that is often the second receiver, in this case, Elliot Daly. But if the ball goes across Daly's face, Watson is on the outside and hopefully can get a kick away. Eddie knows that this killed them in the final, and it's something that they actually addressed in the 2026 Nations, and they've shown they've got in their arsenal. Now, this is built around the 1-3-2-2 formation that we know England are using. Now, Owen Farrell is in the red, you've got George Ford at the green, and at gold you've got Elliot Daly. Now, on the other side you have Fakatawa at red. Now, he's going to be shutting down the second receiver, as is the standard protocol. Now, that is Owen Farrell in this case. Now, as we see here, Ford throws the M1 to miss Farrell when it goes to Daly. Daly has the time and space to make the pass to May before the backfield hit him, and Johnny May does what Johnny May does best, scores tries. Now, admittedly, this game was after George Ford took his restraining order on Steph du Toit out. However, we can actually see that this is something that Warren Gatland has employed before. And my gut tells me that we will see it again. We've seen Wales use it, we've seen England use it. It's just too common a tactic now. I do believe we'll see it, and it's something that we have to address, because all of this, if we need to make the 11-21 patterns work, all of this needs to be considered. For example, if we don't take out the 8 or 3 or compromise the decision making, they're going to see us coming. They're going to see us coming, and therefore our moves, our well-planned, well-drilled moves, are just going to be snuffed out because of the excellence of the South African defence. There's quite a bit of stuff in the media out there saying that these are the way to target the box, but we can only target them if we address all of these defence mechanisms, and it's something Townsend is definitely going to be working on. Now, next up on the set-piece family is the 2-3 phase specials, so basically the Gatland specials. You may have heard of the 3-phase strike moves before. Essentially, it's 2 phases targeting strengths which reveal a weakness that you target on the 3rd phase. One of these that hasn't been realised is the crossfield kick, or the DA, on Faf de Klerk. We've already shown you that 3-phase strike move that targets the edge, maintains the 1-4 split so that the 3rd receiver gets to pass away and they make a break down the wing. But here's the magic. Because we retain the 1-4 split, the 9 is currently isolated on the short side by himself, with the backs reloading cross to reinforce him. However, currently, he is alone. This has revealed a very exploitable weakness. You see, Faf de Klerk is a sensational tackler. He's like having an additional back row in your team. He's that good. However, one thing that he can't do is outjump very tall people. That is the curse of the scrum half. They're shorter than the average player. However, as we can see here, the backs are currently reloading around and the scrum half is isolated on the far side. Now, if we were to move it through the hands, the forwards would come forward and snuff it out. Remember, adjusting defender, tackler, yada yada yada. However, if we were to get it there with a crossfield kick, that changes things. The crossfield kick would get the scrum half before he's been reinforced, and they need to hit. The Lions need to hit here before the winger and the reloaders can reinforce the 9. We have seen the DA employed against shorter men in other occasions, and it really has proved very, very, very effective in really big games. Faf de Klerk is a great tackler. He will tackle the shit out of you, but in terms of height, if we can put one of the taller men in our team against him, he may outcatch and therefore score a try on the 4th phase, because whilst he's a great tackler, it's going to be hard for him to match a tall guy in the air. That's why if the Lions start playing punch wide, they start going through the hands, they risk getting caught by the forwards and buying time for the reloaders to get into position. Now we can see this here, we've got the free edge on the near side. Now the tackle's made, and Creole as the defensive captain initiates the reload. So as we can see, we've got Pollard and Colby moving round to the other side of the field to reload. Now this phase bought them time, so as we can see, the reloaders are now in position to snuff out the overlap. The standard passing running through your shape pattern won't work because you're giving time for the reloaders to get into position. Hence the DA, striking while the iron's hot, is key to this move working. This is something I believe Gatland has seen, and I can't imagine that they won't use it. Next up, we're going to look at how the Lions could isolate the adjusting defenders, and this is done with wide passes from 9 and 10. What we see here is a 2-phase strike move from Wales. Now the first phase targets the 10 and 12, and the box set a little bit narrow, however, it is workable. They have 6+ defenders, meaning the jam is on, but the wide pass to Foxy stops this in its tracks. The wide pass outraces the catch-up. Am, as the tackler, needs to get over for halfpenny as the crash option, but he can't fully get over, meaning Nkosi has to hold for him. This means he can't jam so quickly, and he's got 2 options here to cover, meaning they've confused the last adjusting defender in Nkosi. Against the box, you want to cause this confusion, as it's the only way you're getting around them. Now Nkosi can't jam as quickly, meaning the ball gets out to the Welsh back 3 who are out wide and in a very flat alignment to get around the Springbok catch-up. As we can see, because of this alignment, they make a fuck ton of ground, and it's a great play. Now, one of the key architects for this will be Conor Murray. Now, I know hindsight's always 20/20, but trust me, I knew Conor Murray was going to be the starting scrum half before the whole injury situation and before Alan Wynne unfortunately got injured. Offset piece, I really think, and it was kind of confirmed in Squidger's video, that we're going to see Tom Curry at 7 acting as scrum half, and we're going to see Conor Murray maybe even at first receiver. He can fill that role. It's a little bit out there, but I do think for extra width, we're going to see that. Very quick update, as I made this prediction in June, but as we can see here, we are definitely going to see the 9 at first receiver. Getting back to Conor Murray, however, for me, he's one of the first names on the team sheet because of the work Joe Schmidt has done with him. Joe Schmidt used to time his box kicks, and he did this repeatedly with Murray, and because of this, Murray's box kicking is probably one of the best in the world, and it's key to winning the battle in the air. if the back three, who I truly suspect are going to be mainly fullback orientated, are going to win the battle in the air, they're going to need an accurate box kicker, and Murray, at first receiver and also for box kicking, fills this role perfectly. Under Mike Catt, wide passes have become a key part of Murray's game. In the Irish attack system, Murray is expected to throw long off-9 passes to target the 13 channel, as we can see here. Now, this isn't the last that we're going to talk about this. There are other plays coming that we can see the wide pass is being employed, and it is something because it allows, again, the defence to not catch up. It allows the attack to outrace the catch-up, and therefore you can isolate the edges of the defence. Actually, the next play we're going to show you, which is actually part of the gut feeling plays, this is total coincidence, actually makes use of this long pass dynamic to get around the catch-up. Total coincidence, I didn't see this coming, but yeah, we're going to get into that now. This move is called the drifter, and before the whole league slice slider pattern came into play, this was the common shape that was used by attacking teams, especially in the late 90s/early 2000s. In England's case, some of England's best players swear by this move, attaining that it would work then, it would work now, it will work in 10 years, that it's a really great way to puncture a defence, and I guarantee you it really, really is. It's a magnificent move when used correctly. Now, essentially, the drifter is made up of 2 ball players and 2 crash options. Now, the ball players run over the crash options who are coming from deep. Now, the key behind this is that if they drift too early, if the defence drifts too early to cover the playmakers, you present weak shoulders to the crash options. Say you don't drift though, and you hold for the crash options, but instead the ball goes through the playmakers. Now, the ball goes across the face of the crash option, through the playmakers, and because the defence have held, the overs Lions counter the catch-up and it generates an overlap. So that would be Wilco to Greenwood, or in this case. However, if we look at the split miss option here, take a look at this move. Now, you've got Greenwood who takes the pass, and he puts Tyndall through the 13 channel to make a hell of a break. Now, this is the advantage of the drifter. The overs Lions naturally counters the catch-up, and it allows the receiver to catch the ball much flatter and much wider, as we're about to show you in 2 moves against the Springbok defence. The first move is the New Zealand sweep. Now, we've seen this before, at least if you watched the previous video, you've seen it before, but the original roles are here. So the M1s happened. Now, you've got Handré Pollard at catch-up, you've got Diolande at tackler, and then you've got the 2 adjusting defenders in Creel and Colby. However, the M1 means that the roles shift down 1. So the roles now shift, and you've got Creel at tackler. Now, Creel at tackler is the key element I want you to pay attention to here. So he managed to get over and cover the decoy line, the crash option of Ben Smith. Remember, that is the role of the tackler. This is a result of a really rapid catch-up, but because Creel was able to get over to the tackle position, this means Colby is free to take the slice option. So I want you to remember that, but now let's look at the Aussie version. The Wallabies here don't run the league slice, they run the drifter. Now, Tamua has run an overs line, and look what's happened. Look where he's ended up. He has committed Creel. Now, he's only been able to get out to catch up defender. Now, this means that in the previous option, he was the tackler. He was the tackler in the sweep because he'd been pushed out enough to make the tackle on the crash hit. However, in this case, Kurtley Beale is the crash hit, and Nkosi is the tackler because he's had to come in and make the tackle to cover Beale. Essentially, Tamua's drifters line has outraced the catch-up. Now, what this means, if we show you the progression here, look. Creel has had to tackle Tamua. Now, he should be tackling in the sweep version Kurtley Beale. This, in turn, would free up Nkosi to take Dane Haylett-Petty. Dane Haylett-Petty is the slice option who Colby took in the sweep. However, Nkosi hasn't been able to do it because Nkosi has taken Beale. This means Warwick Gallant, who's in the backfield defence, can't reach Dane Haylett-Petty in time, meaning he has the time and space to get the pass away to Reece Hodge. And as we can see, this puts Hodge in clear space with Kurtley Beale on his inside for the option for the extra pass. However, because, the Wallaby skills maybe aren't as good as the All Blacks, it kind of, goes to shit, unfortunately. But hopefully the point is made. The rolls could not be skipped in the drifter because the drifter outraced the catch-up, whereas in the sweep, the catch-up can skip rolls quick enough as the carriers are running straight. The drifter involves overs lines, which commits outside shoulders, meaning the adjusting defenders on the outside have to hold. And targeting outside shoulders, beating the catch-up, that is the secret of the drifter, and why Conor Murray's passing, as we'll show you later, is going to be so important to the Lions' attack. Murray's wide passes are going to be key to exploiting the adjusting defender and isolating him, and as we can see here, you get a really long pass from Genia and a really long pass from Foley. That is what allows the chance to get an overlap on a Springbok defence. on first phase. This was a huge chance for the Wallabies, and Jean de Villiers in commentary was saying that that was danger zone for the Boks, and as you can see, Checker saw it too. It was a missed opportunity. The reason that this worked is because Sean Byrne is one hell of an attack coach, and if I was the Lions coaches, if I was on the staff, I would be looking over his moves with a fine tooth comb, because they are pretty bloody epic when they come off. Some of Byrne's plays open the Springboks up within 3 phases. This is something not even the All Blacks were able to do, and as such, it's really worth going back and taking a look at them. Now, since the Lions versus the Sigma Lions game, we know the British and Irish Lions are going to use this dynamic. They used a sequence of 2-phase and 3-phase set moves to target this area, using the outside overs line as done by Hogg. This move was used repeatedly in 2-phase and 3-phase formats. The common denominator is that on the 2nd or 3rd phase, Finn Russell throws the M1 out to Hogg on the overs line, who is trying to target the 13 channel. The Lions are going to have to rethink this move, however, as it was quite ably dealt with by the Sigma Lions, and I guarantee you the Bok defence is going to be better and more adjusted to this. However, this was a common trend that they used every time Finn Russell was throwing the M1 over to Hogg on the overs line. This is where the Lions' attack is heading. The combination of Gregor Townsend and Warren Gatland philosophies fused together to create one Lions attack. Now, next up on the docket are blindside raids. Now, blindside raids are something that Warren Gatland used in the Welsh semi-final against the Springboks to quite a good effect. Now, if the Lions use this, they have to be ready for 2 things. 1, the back row are absolute destroyers of quick ball here. And 2, they've got to make sure that they don't take out the 9, that the Boks aren't allowed to take out the 9. The reasoning behind these raids is when you have a scrum on the 15, Andre Pollard basically defends the blind by himself, meaning with a couple of quick, innovative base of the scrum moves, like using the back row that the Lions have, the Lions could make a lot of ground. Now, because of the danger of this, the Springbok back row corner flag like crazy. They do not let the opposition have their own way with this, because they want to get back and they want to destroy quick ball. They want to take out the 9, hopefully just really cause a bit of a mess here. At the edge, this is what the Springboks are usually all about, because you can open a full open side and the Boks don't want you to be able to use it, so they're all about slowing the ball down and getting their lines set. Now, the unrealised move that I think Wales kind of showed in the semi-final was the use of Aaron Wainwright on the inside. He's highlighted here, but as I know he could just be a support option, I'm thoroughly aware of that, but I think he's also an inside option because of the corner flagging of the Bok forwards. I think that the sixes in this system are going to have a very, very, very huge role to play off set-piece attack. I genuinely think that the sixes are going to be instrumental in the way that the Lions attack off set-piece. He detaches quickly in this example. The reason being that if Davies wants an option on the inside, he has Wainwright as well as the winger on the outside. This means that if the back row's corner flag to cover the outside option, the inside option will have to play a bit of footwork against Khaleesi. Now, if that's Sam Simmons on Khaleesi, you have a much higher chance of breaking the line in comparison to beating the 7 and 8 on the outside option, because their corner flagging, with the depth they have, they'll probably catch you and probably turn you over because you're a little bit isolated from the attack if you pick the wing option. This is an essential task for forwards coach Robin McBride. He needs to make sure the Lions maintain set-piece parity so they can launch these moves, and therefore a strong scrum is needed to unleash the creativity behind the line. This is what Gregor Townsend needs to unleash his attack, and it's something that the Lions will focus on. Now, next up on the set-piece families are the Cipher plays. Now, the Cipher plays were very, very common plays used by Joe Schmidt to target the fringes of the ruck. I'm not talking about the impossible-to-find bug Pokemon Cipher, as much as that's more well-known. Usually run in an 11 or 21 format, the Cipher would incorporate a dummy loop to target the fringes of the ruck, usually with strike runners like Rob Kearney or the wingers. I think the sixes in Tyg Byrne and Sam Simmons are going to have a very, very key role with this move, because their acceleration, especially in the case of Sam Simmons, is something that's near unrivaled for other back rows. If we look here, we see Scotland against Italy running a 3-phase move. Now we see this is phase play, so we see the 3-pod go in, and on the second phase we see the 3-pod go in again. Now on the third phase, watch closely. The 9 arcs out to commit the guard before passing back inside to Duan van der Merwe, one of Scotland's best carriers. In a Lions set-piece play against Japan, they send up Bondiaki on the first phase. On the second phase, we see a 3-pod formed, and they take it up the guts. But then on the third phase, look again closely. Murray arcs out to commit the guard, again passing back inside to van der Merwe. The exact same as Scotland. What we have here is the same movement from the winger, but more importantly, the 6 on the third phase. If we have a look here, it's the 6 in Jamie Ritchie on the inside of Duhan van der Merwe in the Scotland example. Now if we take a look a little bit later in the Lions example, it's Tyg Byrne on the inside of Duhan van der Merwe. Ready to provide support, yes, but I think there's a little bit more to this than that. I think the Lions are developing this move to target Duane Vermeulen and Frans Malherbe's positioning at guard. The 9's arc commits the open guard, the winger's line drags over the opposite guard, and the 6 takes the offload through the gap. It essentially creates a gap between D1 and D2 on the opposite side that the 6 is quick enough to exploit. Conor Murray starts this move on the third phase, but on the fourth phase, we see another dynamic that we've talked about, and him employing it against Japan. That long, wide pass that Murray uses to put one of his runners into the 13 channel against Wales. Against the Lions, we see the exact same option. That long, missed pass that goes straight to a runner to try and isolate the adjusting defender. The Lions will be hoping to make ground here on the fourth phase. The third phase objective is to make a break and, as a bonus, take out 2 key defensive decision makers in Duane Vermeulen and Frans Malherbe before isolating the adjusting defender with a wide pass on the fourth phase. Gatland's Wales have targeted these guys before. Owens runs directly into Vermeulen and Malherbe, removing both defensive captains. This helps assist quite a lovely break from Josh Adams on the next phase. Targeting these guys can lead to a fault in decision making. This is what I believe will be a nutcracker for the Lions. And now we've gone through all the set piece, it's time for the attack. We've already discussed how set-piece attack will be used to target Nienaber's box, but simultaneously we need to now look at the squad available and how we think Gregor Townsend will employ the multi-phase attack, how the Lions will string phases together to try to break down the Springboks. If you'd asked the 2019-2018 Scotland, they would have told you that they would have been playing the fastest brand of rugby in the world, which is what the Scots aspired to, but there's since been a change in philosophy. In 2020-2021, Scotland have become far more physical. They're willing to keep possession in the opposition red zone, play one out, milk and build for penalties. But overall, they have become much more streetwise and ultimately, when it comes down to it, much more pragmatic. Pragmatism is key in Test rugby. It's knowing when to play from deep and then when to play the percentages. When to play the right areas of the field, to play territory and don't keep possession when a turnover could cost you a lot of points. Gregor Townsend is the Obi-Wan to Warren Gatland's Qui-Gon Jinn. Now he has brought his Scotland attack shape to the Lions and we've seen it used quite effectively thus far. Now the 2 shapes that they use are the 1-3-3-1 and the 1-3-2-2. Now they use these in the piercer and the stretcher formations. Whilst I really hope differently, I do not believe we're going to see a lot of tries in the Springbok Lion tests. I really think we're going to see quite a drought, if I'm being honest. What we do have is Elliot Daly and we have Francois Steyn. Now both of these guys, as you can probably imagine, are magnificent kickers, but more importantly they're magnificent proven kickers with huge boots at test level. This is what I believe the set piece and the multi-phase attack is meant to do. Get teams in a position to score penalties. Under Gregor Townsend, Scotland's adoption of the 1-3-3-1 is a key testament to their willingness to go physical. The pods are massive battering rams, and then they have wide forwards, or the wing forwards in the ones, who are there to run decoy lines or maintain possession. Here, the Scots have slipped into a 3-3-2, with physicality in the free pod and good lines/hands from the 2 wing forwards releasing van der Merwe down the wing and resulting in quite a lovely little try here. It's a good thing we actually end on this because Duhan van der Merwe and Stuart Hogg are essential to the piercer and the stretcher dynamics that we're going to show you now. Now, the way that the Scots run the 1-3-3-1 is quite simple. The first free pod is immediately a battering ram pod with Finn Russell located behind for the pullback pass. Now, these guys are meant to generate momentum. The second free pod is done a little bit differently, however. These 3 are in a much flatter alignment, the intention being to disguise the pass from Finn Russell and confuse the defence as to which receiver is taking the ball. Now, we've got 2 in red and we've got 1 in black who is the blocker/release option. That's quite important. Behind them in green, we have the release option to the wide men, and then in orange, we have the piercer option. Now this is where it gets interesting. If the free pod are able to obstruct or impede the catch-up of the defence, that means that holes open in the defensive line that the piercer can take with the inside pass. This is one of the key reasons why Hogg is on the inside. Scotland can run this around the 3 pod, they can run it around the 1 pod. It really doesn't matter as long as you have a blocker, but the key is that the piercer is the Scottish seam strategy off the release option. This is the key dynamic they're trying to introduce. They are trying to provide the release option with 2 options. We see Scotland employ this here. The ball goes to Hogg, who passes behind the blocker to Horn. Now Horn has 2 options, Van der Merwe on his inside as the piercer, or the option out wide as the stretch option. Van der Merwe as the piercer targets weak shoulders via the seam and makes quite a nice carry. This means if Scotland are able to generate quick ball, the 15 metre is going to be very exploitable on the next phase. Now while Scotland won't always go through the forwards to release the backs, often passing behind, we can see Watson as the piercer changing his line to target the created space. The blockers must check outside shoulders in the line to open the gaps that the piercer can exploit. England use this as well, with their 2 pod checking the line and Johnny May inadvertently changing his line to try and target the created space because the 2 pod have inadvertently become obstruction. I believe Townsend has employed this strategy with the Lions because he wants to check the Springbok catch-up and the tackler. As we know, the catch-up is very important to the Springbok defence. Remember, the Springboks catch-up is designed to deal with seam attacks, so there are going to have to be some exceptional blocking lines run by the forwards, but it seems as if the Lions' attack is headed this way. The Scots can also use roving wingers to slot into the piercer role at the last second, further confusing the defence. For me, however, the real role of the piercer is designed to unlock the space in the 15s, particularly for next phase attack. The Scots really like their crossfield kicks and their little chip kicks in the 15-metre channels. They love them, and it's something that they've used consistently in their attacking patterns. This kicking is a direct result of their goals towards pragmatism, but the Lions have to be careful when they'll employ this kicking game. You're going to get guys like Tyg Byrne and Sam Simmons who are going to be in the wide channels. They're going to be here, and they're going to be here for a very specific reason, for kick regain off the chasers. The Lions are going to employ these crossfield kicks, and if they succeed or come off, they're going to hope that the loose forwards and Simo and Byrne are on the shoulder to take the ball forward, and it's something that I do imagine we're going to see. In contrast, the stretcher unlocks the space in the 15s with the loop off the release option, or the blocker, as we also know them. Now here we have the 3 pod as the battering ram. This is something we already know, but let's take a look at the 2nd pod. Here, again, we have the flat 3 pod. The ball goes to the furthest man who loops behind a Hogg who releases the wide men as the release option. Now, this actually results in quite a lovely break for Duhan van der Merwe. This is something that Gatland wants to see in the Lions. Let's take a look at exactly how the Lions will employ this. Now, I started this video way before the Lions started playing tests. I started it quite a bit before. But as I'm quite lucky to have seen the Lions play tests, we've seen exactly how the Lions have incorporated these shapes. That has been the key of these tests, bedding in shapes and patterns to use against the box. What we can really see here, however, is the Gregor Townsend and the Warren Gatland philosophies merging together. Here, we see the Lions run a 3 pod option off 10. Now, this is the start of a set piece, but look at this. We see multiple 3 pod carries. Now, this is something the Scots could do. However, if we have a look later, they consistently run these 3 pods, which is buying time for the Lions to set up their piercer set in Henshaw and Duhan van der Merwe, as we can see here. Now, whilst this doesn't work on this occasion, we do start to see the Warren Gatland touches on the Lions' attack. As we can see, they go through the 3 pods, but here, it hasn't worked, they go to the air. This is something that we will see quite a bit against the box. The Lions are rapidly reloading and zigzagging to confuse the fold of the forwards. However, we do also see very key indications of Scottish attack philosophy in this Lions team. We see rapid repositioning here, especially off set piece attack. On the first phase here, we see a standard Warren ball attack using a heavy crash option in 12. Look, Jamie Roberts reincarnate. Now, the Lions shape to attack to the open, however, we see rapid repositioning on the blind side from Aki and from Josh Adams, so on and so forth, and Biggs here. Now, whilst Japan do a good job of slowing down ruck speed, the ball eventually finds Josh Adams, who does what he does at the moment and goes over for the try. One of the main questions we really have to look at is how applicable would these tactics be against the box? I mean, look, we have a standard stretcher option here, and they throw the M1, but boom, they kind of get nailed. If the Springboks manage to number up, if they have 6+ men in the line, the width of their adjusting defender via their natural spacings means the M1 probably will get them nailed. And remember, the trick with Nienaber's defence is slow ball. Everything that the Boks do in defence is designed to generate slow ball and keep the opposition in the centre of the field. As they can consistently generate slow ball here, this buys time for the line to set and the defence to number up. Everyone in the media is saying the Lions want to play fast and out-tempo the Boks. Now I do believe they want this, but the Boks aren't going to lay down and give them the quick ball that they need to do this. They are going to slow the ball down at every opportunity, and the Lions have to be prepared for this. The Lions are going to go through the phases, but they're not going to go through the phases so much that they're reaching 10, 15, 20 phases, because the Boks are just going to push them back down the field consistently. It is going to happen. This is why we're going to see the off-9 brutality mixed with a nice amount of subtlety from the Pierces and the backs, and simultaneously the kicking of the Gatland era, if it isn't working. We've seen the battering ram 3-pod, but here we see the flat 3-pod with the pass going out to Sinclair to confuse the defence as to which receiver is taking the pass. They exploit the 15 on the next phase, but then we look here, we see the flat 3-pod with Jamie George at the blocker/loop roll. George loops the pass back to Farrell as the release option, who has Hogg on his inside as the piercer, and outside him he has Chris Harris as the stretch option. Farrell picks Harris, who takes the ball to the line and puts a great chip option for Reese Lightning to go over for his first Lions test try. Great play and a great indication of what the Lions want to do. That wide pass from Russell to George was absolutely key, and it's something that the Lions are going to be using and have used throughout this. As we can see, Russell passes out wide here to Tyg Byrne, who goes straight through the gap and scores the try. This is something the Lions want to use against the Springboks. They want to outrace the catch-up with the wide pass to force the adjusting defenders to commit to either the blocker or the second receiver in the slice option behind the 3-pod. The adjusting defender here goes for the slice, but his inside man can't catch up quick enough due to the width of the pass, resulting in Byrne going straight through the gap. There are a few things the Lions are going to have to do to make sure this works, because there is one key thing that the Boks do that means that this would have been snuffed out. However, the keys here will ensure and go some way to making sure that this has a likelier chance of working against the Bok adjusting defence. Remember, the Bok adjusting defenders jam in together, meaning the first would have taken Byrne and the second would have taken the slice option behind. Now the key thing to note, however, is that if we present a certain picture, we can allow the 6 all the way through and Tyg Byrne to make his line. This is via the use of the Exeter. The first move we looked at can be used in multi-phase attack. Here, we see Slade and Noel form the Exeter. Now this means that the 2 adjusting defenders occupy these guys, meaning Mark Wilson, if the ball had been passed to him, would have gone straight through. If you put Sam Simmons or Tyg Byrne in this position, they possess an acceleration Mark Wilson, with all due respect to him, he's a brilliant player, does not, and they would have got through before the adjusting defender could correct their line and jam in on them. If you look at it in slow motion, look here, Mark Wilson can be a little bit flatter. Now the 2 adjusting defenders are going for Slade and Noel. This means that the gap that Wilson is going for, the gap between the tackler and the adjusting defender, is open. If Noel wasn't here, this would mean that Creel would take Wilson and Yanti would come in to take Slade, but because Noel is here, the 2 adjusting defenders have to go for Slade and Noel. This means they're reliant on the catch-up to take Wilson, but the wide pass would outrace the catch-up, allowing Wilson straight through the gap. This is something we know the Lions have seen, but maybe not shown their full hand with. I believe their full hand involves the use of the release and piercer in Exeter formation to commit both adjusting defenders, meaning the tackler adjusting defender gap is on for the 6 on the wide pass. This is the level of trouble and detail Gregor Townsend is going to have to look into to beat the Juk Nienaber system. The Juk Nienaber system is incredibly hard to beat, and if you get a 6-man plus South African defensive line, it's going to be near impenetrable. The Lions are going to want to play. However, the key thing that we're going to have to note here is they're going to have to get past the slow ball generation. They're going to have to use all the tricks that they can to do it. But the key element that the Lions are going to count on is their set piece attack. Their set piece attack is going to be their king in getting their points. Gatland knows the Bok defence will likely be too good to break down in multi-phase. Hence the Lions' trump card, the set piece attack, is going to make a brilliant chess battle and hopefully one hell of a test series.